So the next development on from that then is if we've got strategy necessary to achieve purpose and we've got a management infrastructure in place to make sure that's working and we have some structure, then we need to make decisions. We need to make decisions between those things. And it's not just about making decisions in isolation. It's about making decisions across things and following that through. So the proposition here is that we don't just have governance, which is corporate governance or is program governance or is product governance, but it's that we connect it all up and start to understand the dependencies and choices between these things. This is the proposition with integrated governance, is that we try to get our system, our business system, governed effectively by making sure that we understand how all the governance works and that it works consistently and coherently, and that if it is integrated, we know our policies and procedures, how they work, and we've got compliance in place, all that good enabling and hygienic stuff. We can then make sure that the governance regime facilitates information-based decision making. And I think that's a really important thing. It's not emotion-based decision making based on my view that I've spun for everybody, but it's based on information-based decision making that is logical and defensible. So what do you guys think of those 2 points?
Massive.
Huge.
and
But
and
it's
the case study I presented before,
Yep.
that was the underlying thing. We have to be able to make decisions based on real information, not individual data points that don't give a balanced view of the truth. And to get rid of spin and bias. Show us the
this
evidence.
this to me is the biggest issue with integrated governance, is that I wonder if a lot of one of our presenters at the conference talked about don't ask, don't tell syndrome, and the unwillingness of people to want to hear stuff that they didn't really want to hear, and unwillingness to tell what they didn't want to go out on a limb for. So is innately information-based decision making, integrated governance destined to fail because culturally and emotionally people don't want to do it, however logical it is.
There's another angle here, which is I think getting more and more prevalent. AI is going to increase the issue, and that's the
Yeah,
degree of trust in the information that you've got.
yeah.
So it's quite easy to interpret data into two completely different sets of information, which may be completely at odds with each other. And there's a lot of that going on in science research at the moment, because typically who pays for the research gets the answers that they wanted the research to give them in the first place. So it's almost like the Donald Rumsfeld. You've got the clumsy interpretation. You've got the deliberately misleading interpretation, and then you've also got the one that's a step worse than that, which is the I'm going to use whatever the data says to do what I've already decided I'm going to do. And so
Yeah.
how does the man on the street, and this is where the challenge is for me, how does the man on the street differentiate? Because when you've got, I don't know, scientists going on the screen telling you to stay indoors because the science is settled, that kind of stuff is really quite influential and emotive,
Yeah.
and it's a trickle down of the what's the bias, where the basically the cleverest person in the room says something and everybody believes them,
There's
and
a hippo effect as well. Highest paid
yeah, there's
person in the
that,
room.
yeah, highest
Yeah.
paid person's
Highest paid
opinion.
person's opinion.
Yeah, but you've got all of this kind of stuff. So on the one hand, we're all talking about evidence-based decision making or
Yeah.
information-based decision making, but who's the arbiter of that? And then you put AI into the mix, and is it real intelligence or is it regurgitation, where where the loudest shouting person. So you put something into Chat GPT, it gives you an answer out, and you say, "Well, I disagree with that," and then it churns out something that's completely opposite, and you think, "Well, hang on a minute." So you haven't got a clue, yet you responded with significant amount of confidence, and you've got this moniker that says artificial intelligence or portfolio data or business accounts or whatever it is. You know, Big Four research, these are the things that will drive decision making. And the evidence is either partial, biased, or downright slanted.
Chris,
Okay.
I'll put it differently, but I worked for a micro organization that was growing very fast, and they realized that they had to put in things like ERP and EPM and BI, and they had to link the data so that they had a picture. Was it perfect? No. Could it still be spun or interpreted in different ways? To an extent. Was it infinitely better than what they had before, where they weren't tracking these data points, they weren't getting information that gave them a company-wide view? Of course, it was infinitely better than that. So I believe that for an organization to operate effectively, it must have information-based decision making.
It needs data governance as well, and data provenance
Yes.
and data audit and data assurance to give that
all of
kind
those things, and
Yeah.
you have to make
Yeah.
sure that the information you're capturing is completely across the business. You're not missing out key data that could skew your decisions one way or another. But it is infinitely better than what we had before. And there are still quite a lot of organizations that I've come across who are very poor at this. They have individual silos where they have good data, and then they have enormous swathes of the organization where they have very poor data, and they do not have the mechanisms in their organizations to make sure that there is balanced information gathering across the organization to facilitate better organization-wide decision making. Unfortunately, it's very common.
I work for one of the biggest food companies in the world, and it's like that. there are departments that have amazing data to support decision making, and there's others, for example, the manufacturing team on site, that would rather work with a whiteboard and a pen to plan their day. It's chalk and cheese, and it's part of the transformation office's role at the moment. One of our current strategy pillars is to increase consumer-led data into our decision making and have a really robust decision making structure in there, because the director level are making siloed decisions between them. Even very, very senior people are making decisions for their team, so their team's only doing what their director is saying, and then it unravels over time. Another director says, "Oh, well, actually there's a split point of view," and disagrees, and it causes chaos. So that's fun right now.
We need psychological safety to be able to challenge, and perhaps some level of assurance to be able to prod and poke independently without fear or favor. But there's also, you need, as Chris was saying, you need confidence in the source of information. So we see organizations a lot that are sending information. I'll create my spreadsheet, I'll manipulate it, I'll put it in a PowerPoint, and I'll send it. And that's the source of that data, and where that's come from is then untraceable. How do you know where that's come from? How do you rely on it? How do you check that that's not been messed with or is viable? So there's all kinds of issues. What's gone stale is out of date. So, but there's lots more space on the sheet here. But the key principles are here that if you want to deliver strategy through an organization, then we need to make sure our decision making is integrated, and that we need information. And the principle here is we need information to operate that governance with.
I was just going to add on, David, that's why I really like the build view of this. So we've covered in some detail some of the issues around strategy. The governance, I'm a big fan of data-driven decisions, but it's the integrated part. And I like this build because it implicitly ties it to the organisation has structure, and the decision making is integrated into that structure. And I think we've all seen plenty of variations on, the paperclip decision being made at board level and something ridiculously consequential happening at, a tiny backroom office somewhere with no oversight and governance. And there is definitely something about making sure that the right levels of decisioning is happening at the right levels. And then how we broker those decisions and trade off, equally powerful people and interests is a whole other conversation. But it's that it's explicit, that people can't go away and make highly consequential decisions in isolation or on their own or at too low a level, or that we're not wasting very valuable, high level executive time on trivialities that aren't material.